Good morning and welcome to Brosted Gardens. This is the morning of May 4th at 8:30, and I'm going to do a little property/garden tour. So we're at the very entrance of my property where we have just recently planted this Oregon grape. We have some native irises right here. This is the edge of our property. It right now is unused. It goes down the hill. It goes to a hill, which then goes down for about 100 feet to our property line, which is like just past those two tall trees and that telephone pole. There's a drainage ditch there. This right now is just the right-of-way for these telephone poles on our property, so this probably won't be getting much use. Right here is the side of our driveway between our neighbors and ours. And this is where I'm going to be planting a bunch of like cactuses and heat-loving plants because it gets really warm in the summer. We have some sulfur buckwheat, an Oregon native, a couple different prickly pear varieties. There's one. That was one, but we had a pretty cold winter for a sustained period of time, so we lost a few things. Here we have some Oregon sunshine. Have a Cape Blanco sedum, another Oregon native. Most of these ground covers are Oregon natives. Here we have an agave. I think it's agave americana. It's one of the big ones. It's just a really nice wide open space with a lot of area for heat and stuff. Some oak trees that I need to get rid of. A bunch of irises. And that just continues all the way down there. Over here we have, this is like the top part of our property. Right now, it was really just like a gravelly, rocky area. Right now I have it with a bunch of wood chips. This is where I get wood chips delivered. I did about, 6 to 8 inches of wood chips in this area to build some soil. Here we have some sunchokes, a large patch that I planted about 2 years ago. Here we have a fresh patch of sunchokes, planted it last year, and pretty much everything's coming up. This is like a mixed genetics, so it'll be fun to see what we like the best and grow what we want from there. Oh, the camas is blooming. We have a fairly wet property, so we get a bunch of wild camas, which is really cool. I need to at some point take it and dig it up and eat it, see what it tastes like. But it's a really pretty flower, one of my favorites as well. So here's another view of down the hill. Just goes all the way to that line of trees down there. It's the edge of our property. Right now it's just all wild. Don't really have the time or energy to focus on that. It's also tick season, so I really don't like going out there. Try and avoid those. Right here, I have the water coming off the driveway, and from up over there it diverts into this pond, and then it diverts from there into here, which then goes into this part of our property. This goes over through that little ditch and helps the water go over there and infiltrate over there. We get a lot of our rain in the winter, late fall, early spring, and about none in the summer. So this deals with all the excess of water we get, helps plant it into the land so that we can use it for the summer, hopefully. And then over here is my nursery. I try and grow a lot of native plants, but I have, some like daylilies, black walnut trees, just some other stuff that people like to buy. I like to sell plants. But yeah, we have like some Monarda, some random ground covers. I grow in the shade a little bit to help with the heat stress because it gets routinely into the high 90s and 100s in the summer. So this just helps with my watering. There's the pathway down to our other side of the lower field. We have 2 ponds right over here, past the willows. I'll have a better vantage point at some point, but down there are the 2 ponds. So we have a 500-foot long driveway. It takes it all along the top of our property, where we just have this empty spot in between. Have some like drainage problems with water getting the gravel all wet. So you can see it's still wet there. Hasn't rained for like a week now. This whole area right here stays pretty wet. And then right here there's a lot of water that just flows in the gravel, and I'm going to try and solve that and just divert the water from up here to just right over there by that willow, have it spill out and collect the water over there, because right now all the water just goes down there, down the edge of the driveway towards our garage, and just gets this all super wet, drains over right there, and then all of that along that little slope down to the back field is super wet during the winter. And so I'm trying to solve that a little by diverting it other places, but I'm not trying to drain the water off the property entirely, just off of certain areas. Eventually going to have some shrubs between our driveway and the neighbor's driveway, probably like red twig dogwoods, yellow twig dogwoods, hazelnuts, throw a few hydrangeas for some color, but mostly natives. Right here is the start of that. We have a red twig right here and right there. Grew those from cuttings from some other red twig dogwoods. Here we have some flowering quince. Now we go into our ornamental garden, starting with a yellow twig dogwood. I have a yarrow and a native flax right here. Some pretty blue flowers. As you can see, that one's about to bloom. There's another dogwood. The deer really like to browse on those, so they're not doing the best, but I'm hoping they can outcompete them. We got this property about 2.5 years ago. It was just, someone's property where they had like a excavating company, so they just had some random stuff here. This is like a pretty hawthorn we're keeping for now. Right here is an apricot. So this isn't quite as developed as I'd like it to be, but we're getting there. This is like the native plant corner. We have a native rudbeckia, some more flax, the native columbine, more sulfur buckwheat, California mugwort. I'm not sure what that one is, but we're watching it grow. We have a red flowering currant. We have like a grape here that just was grown on the property. We're leaving it for now. Some chives. We have horse mint, or Agastache. I forget the other name. Yeah, a little weedy, but we're getting it established. Throwing a bunch of wood chips to help outcompete the weeds. We have a bindweed problem, but I'm hoping to solve that eventually by just like having other plants outcompete it. Hopefully make it less likely for it to be here. Here we have another drainage pond, like a vernal pond is what my goal is going to be. Kind of like a drainage swale. Just comes down from the side of the driveway I showed you earlier. Drains a bunch of the water from our gravel driveway. Stops it here with these wood chips. Fills these ponds so that it has time to infiltrate into the ground. Create a little bit of natural habitat, and it goes along that way into our orchard area. So yeah, here's the ornamental garden. Some rosemary for the color, and this is where we harvest it for use. Just planted a cardoon, which is edible, but it's mostly for the flowers. Some lavender. We have a pineapple guava, kind of like the start of our orchard right here. These are some wild American plums. So yeah, we were just talking about the wild American plums. We have this really big grove right here, and then we have many others dotted throughout. They're not the best tasting fruit, so I will be chopping some of them down, but they are native and they do deserve to be here, so we'll leave some of them. Here is a black turkey fig, I believe. Just planted it this year. This is the Corylus cornuta, or the California hazelnut. It's slightly smaller than the regular hazelnuts from commercial hazelnuts, but it's a native shrub, so that'll be a lot of fun. We just have some various plants, like right there is a wild grape. We have a hydrangea right here, some various stuff around here. Over here is like this old shed that was gone when we got here, so we just kind of use this as our like fire pit area, nothing else. So this is the start of our orchard, all right here. That whole corner of our property. We have some artichokes I'm trying to get established for while the orchard is young. I'm also getting like other things. We have some oregano and mint there. There's some wild raspberries right there. They're native wild raspberries. Some asparagus as well. We'll just keep those while everything's low. Once the trees get really high, we'll figure out what to do with this area, do more shade tolerant stuff. Gonna do a Satsuma mandarin here. They're supposed to be fairly frost hardy. That was one, but the cold winter we had really killed it off. Here we have some more of the service berries hiding in this lilac. This is just like to protect it from the deer, give it a good chance to establish. These are ones I bought from a nursery. Here's another one, so that's exciting. This is a nectarine, I believe. And here we have a peach. That was an apple, but I think it died. We have an apple right there. It's an oak tree this is where I do the main collection of acorns for acorn flower in October. Here we have a pear. It's a Shishinki pear, I believe. Then we have two cherry trees, one there. One's a Rainier cherry, one's just a Stella, I believe. That's supposed to be a Mormon apricot, but I don't see any growth yet, so I don't know what's going on. I'm also doing strawberries in the ground in the orchard, help them get a little bit established while everything is still open and sunny. Use that space until we can't use it for that anymore. Here we have another tree. This is an Anjou pear. There we have a combo apple. It's 3 different ones. So that is the neighbor's property, and that's our well pump. We have just some hardy pomegranates here. And there's another one growing here, right next to that bucket, which I use as like a watering device. This area we'll keep pretty like with plants with not a lot of roots, since this is our well pump. I have some sunchokes to help hide this crate behind here. Right now there's no intended use, but we'll figure something out. Here is a native carrot relative. I forget the name of it, but it's cool. We have only a few over here, but a lot in that first part of the hill I showed you earlier. And then this is where it just goes right back to where the driveway and the ornamental garden is. Right along this area is where all the water drains into the orchard. It goes like here and then goes this direction. I have not had enough where I've seen it pool beyond this, but I'm assuming it just all goes that direction. It leads us all the way over to here. That oak tree's on the edge of our property. That oak tree's on our property at the very edge. And that corner, but under there you can kind of see it, is like a thicket of blackberries. That's the corner of our property. And there's our chicken coop. Right now we don't have chickens. Something got them last year, so we're gonna predator proof it better and get some new ones next year, depending on how life goes. Right here in the middle of the orchard slash ornamental garden, we have a cistern which needs some repairs, but eventually I'll have rainwater from the roof come here and fill it up. Try and use this for a bunch of our watering in the summer, or as long as we can. There's some garlic from last year I didn't harvest. Going through the ornamental garden towards the house, we have this little flower bed which has a hibiscus tree, a bunch of, some of your standard garden center plants, just like that ice plant or whatever it's called. We have some lavender cotton hiding in the weeds back there. The other section, the bigger section, is full of native wildflowers. We have some perennial lupin, California poppies, forget what those are, like blue buttons or something, or those purple flowers, and of course some grass and weeds mixed in. But yeah, this is one of our favorite little beds. Here is the side of our house with the deck that wraps all the way around in an L. The front of our house, our yard, where I'm trying to, get a bunch of clover. There's a red clover blooming now, which you can barely see. And a bunch of other things like yarrow, some woodland strawberries, and English daisies and violets and stuff to grow in the lawn. Little less, a little colorful, a little less water management, a little less mowing management. Hopefully it will stay green in the summer a little longer. Along the side of our house we have some mums, some dahlias, and a star jasmine I just planted, so that's what this looks like. Okay, we're back by the side of the deck. This goes down to our garden. We moved it here last year, well, after the end of the season last year, because it just was over here in the orchard. It was just getting too much sun, it was too hard to manage. So we have it in a little smaller area. It gets some shade during the early morning, but it gets a good amount of late morning to early afternoon sun. Then these trees here block the late afternoon, the early to late afternoon sun. It gets maybe some evening sun, but it just, protects it from hopefully the heat of the day, and will keep it easier to water and maintain. Here's a staircase. I just built this like 3 weeks ago from some YouTuber. The YouTuber's name, who I got the idea and design from, is Wineberry Hill. He had a good explanation video of how to do this, and it's really nice to have a working staircase. It was about $100 for all the wood and materials and gravel. Took me about 6 hours to build, and I didn't even have all the tools that he had in the video, and it was still really simple to do, and it works really well. Here is one of the newest beds I have. I'm growing some wildflowers to do some drying of the flowers. I wove the bed from willow branches and willow stakes, doing like the wattle method. I plan to do some squash and other things up this hill. Here we have some garlic from last year. One of our beds with some chives. Here's the regular chives. There's garlic chives right here. We have cilantro, some fennel right there. This is probably where I'll plant some of my tomatoes. Just mix a bunch of things in, create a good little polyculture. One of my favorite weeds is pineapple weed. It has like a sweet pineapple smell. You could use it in teas. It's similar, it's related to chamomile, but it is a native weed. Here we have a colorful sage, also in a little wattle woven bed. Here's another sage. The other bed, I have some random woodland strawberries around, some random ground covers around. This bed has the carrots here, lettuce here. On the left side is some leeks. On the right side are some onions. And at the very end, these two here are a native to Oregon onion. This is a walkway down to the chicken coop I showed you earlier. Just some more of the hill, more of the property. It just goes all the way out to there. The edge of the property is right there, where you can see the fence and the brambles. That just goes down to the 2 ponds, which are those grove of trees. You can't really see them. We'll eventually clear some things out, make it more usable, but that's a future project. This is just a wild field we're not using anything for. Has a bunch of, this is where our septic is. So eventually we'll just manage it a little better, keep it a little shorter. You can see in that very corner, you can't really see it. You can kind of. There's a bunch of camas, a huge amount of camas blooming over there, which is cool. Back to the garden beds. Right here, I got some actual potato seed, not the potatoes themselves, but seeds. I'm going to grow in the plants right now. I'm going to plant them in that little section. The wood chips are just the mulch. This bed is going to have beets, which you can kind of see growing right here. Things are eating them, so I might have to transplant stuff. We have some kale right here, some more lettuce. This bed is going to be my sweet potato bed. I'm going to fill it pretty much with sweet potatoes. I might do some tomatoes, maybe a squash or 2. Planted here. This isn't it, but hopefully coming up soon we have some hopness, or Apis americana, also known as groundnut. We have some native trailing blackberries, which my goal is to get them to trail down the hill. Here is where I've planted my potatoes. Some of them, those are just coming up. A bunch of garlic I planted in November of last year. It's looking really good. More potatoes. This is either Kennebec or Yukon Gold. And this is the other half of the Kennebec or Yukon Gold. I have some salmon berries in this corner. Right there and there. It should be pretty shady enough for them. We have some hazelnuts here. Kind of want to grow like a little hedge wall along this edge. That's a red flowering currant. Another hazelnut. 4th hazelnut right there. Here we have some salal berries. All of these shrubs, not the garlic or the potatoes, but everything else in this hill is a native plant. We'll try and get rid of the grass and keep it all. Use the salal as a ground cover and the shrubs and stuff to help block other things. Right by this grass we have some miner's lettuce. It's definitely at the end of its life, but I'm going to try and encourage that. Trying to keep this a little more bare. On this side of our house we have our rainwater collection. It enters through that bin there, which is kind of like a settling bin for a sediment trap to keep, the stuff from the roof shingles out of there, pollen, bird poop. So the water all settles in there, filters out some of the settlement, goes into this IBC tote. Once that fills, it successfully chains into these 3 rain barrels, which then goes down that red hose in the ground right there, out under the wood chips to right here. So any excess water goes and fills this garden area with water to help anything growing in the ground. These black pots, 15 gallons, are going to be filled with, actually they're 20 gallons, are going to be filled with sweet potatoes. I got a bunch from Annie's Heirloom Seeds. My dog Luna has joined the tour. Say hi. She's not very vocal. So yeah, here is the underside of our deck of our house. Gonna put lattice up like that one over all of these, grow some vines. That'll be the entrance. We have some passion flower vine right here and right there. Just got those. Here is like my little simulated pond. I have a couple pond plants that need water level throughout the year, but I don't know exactly where the water in our pond stops. So I need to make sure I find that before I can plant it. Right here is Indian potato. I think that might be Indian potato as well. It's supposed to be, but I think the main bulb died, but that little green thing right here. It looks like it could be a sprout. And this grass is Juncus encephalus. I forget the common name. It's another native to Oregon grass that likes wet soil. More pots for the sweet potatoes. Another wild grape, which will trail up the trellis once we get a trellis. Here is the back side of our house, which goes into our basement. That rain barrel right there catches all the condensate from our heat pump. And then the overflow goes and waters a patch of, that's not wild grass. There's supposed to be a native grass and some cool creeping raspberry is what it's called. So here is more of the back of our property. Bunch of blackberries. We're working on eliminating them, but it's a long process, especially since this property was abandoned for like 4-ish years. And then I'm sure they didn't manage it super well before then. I know it was grazed for a while, but it's been at least 5 years since that happened. Here's our lower area, our garage. This right here takes all the rainwater from all the roofs except for that small corner, which I have going into those rain barrels. The very edge takes a bunch of the water that comes from above down here all the way to this pipe, which I'll eventually have like 1,000-gallon rain barrel to flow it, collect it a little, use it on, maybe pump it up to the nursery, which is just right there between those two willows. And then the overflow will hopefully skip this little driveway going down here because it gets super mucky, super muddy in the winter due to pretty much all the water draining here. We'll skip it over the driveway, have it drain into that area right here, and then eventually into the ponds, just to help infiltrate the water, basically planting the water in the ground, because that's what really keeps things sustainable and well growing. If it wasn't for the ticks, I'd definitely go down and give you a better view, better tour of down there. The ponds are really pretty. There's some pretty stuff. Maybe in late summer, once they're a little less, or once I've managed to weed whack a trail through, or winter, we'll give you a better tour. So this is our driveway. I dug out that hill to make it a little wider. Have a little drainage ditch to help drain all the water, because this was getting, before I did any of this, it would get super sopping wet in the winter when we were getting all our rains. And even this would, I did this like little diversion rolling dip here, which helps just shunt all the water off, and it really has helped. As soon as it stops raining, there's no water beyond this dip, or this little ditch right here. This ditch takes us all the way back to the nursery. Here's the view from the nursery down the hill. That oak tree is like right on the edge of the pond. The ponds are right there. A fuck ton of camas growing here, super pretty. You can kind of see it right there. Yeah, there we go. That's cool. Just started blooming recently. Well, thank you for watching. I'm going to do more garden tours throughout the season as things progress. I will do individual, like probably garden spotlights, plant spotlights throughout the thing. If I get more wood chips, which I get from Chip Drop, I can show you that, show you how I use them, show you how certain plants are grown. Yeah, you guys all have a good day. Thanks for watching, and grow some plants.